Okay, so I will share my screen first. Okay, so thank you for everyone to attend today's webinar. Today's webinar is a sustainable metaverse infrastructure, how to build it. So we have 4 speakers, and then we have a very broad agenda to cover this fantastic topic. So for example, we are going to talk about what is the present and future of the metaverse and requirement of the metaverse infrastructure and architecture of the metaverse infrastructure and building the sustainable network infrastructure like Web3 or 560 or BN and edge network, something like that. And then building the sustainable computing infrastructure like green digital infrastructure or data centers or edge computing, something like that. And then we're thinking about the like a requirement of metaverse infrastructure standardization. So this mostly relate to like infrastructure network or something like that. And then building the sustainable software infrastructure. So some safety, security. Security is a very important issue. And we have an expert for this and the privacy and ethics. Okay, so I will let you know the schedule. So we are a little bit late, but we're finishing in time. So the first I will introduce about the standard like a sustainable metaverse infrastructure overview, and after that you see that Nenad will talk about the metaverse 0.1, the beginning, and then after that Doug will talk about sustainable metaverse network infrastructure. And the third is the TK, Tapan will talk about the edge networking with the security. So it is essential ingredient for the metaverse. And then finally, that hopefully he joined about the decarbonizing Web3. So it's a decentralized network, how you can make it sustainable. And then finally, we'll join all together in the panel discussion and Q&A. Mostly we hope that the active participation from the audience of today. So we will talk in this order. So Nenad, you're the first, and then Doug will be the second, and then TK, you will be the third, and then hopefully Loïc join as a final. And then during the talk, if you have any specification to specific speaker, and then you can leave your question in the chat window. And then the speakers will give you answer during other speakers' talk. Okay, so without any delay, I will start my presentation. So this is just well known in the media. That like you know that last year the Mark Zuckerberg in Facebook announced his company name change, and then he will have some vision about the metaverse. And after that, it was a lot of boom. And then in all the media and consulting company and all the company industry enthusiasm about this new like a digital evolution. So Gartner is predict like 25% of people will spend at least 1 hour per day in metaverse by year 2026. And then CD is the metaverse economy will create a new economy as large as $13 trillion for the year 2030. It's not really, it's not more than 10 years, so it's very short. And then Fortune talk about that you will have like avatar will work, so our work will be completely different in situation. And then also you can make money. So you will actually make money in the metaverse. And Bloomberg will talk about like it will be like for infrastructure or other like the technology market will grow. And also like a metaverse is better between the big giants like Google, Apple, Microsoft, and Meta, and other like companies will join. So this is just illustration that just now it is popular that a lot of the company in all particle industry try to do something to relate with the metaverse. So Mostly it is in on the for example in the virtual space like branding and virtual space like entertainment and then the some of the manufacturing. So you can see that there are 100 actually. I just give you the just a snapshot, but is all the industry are now join and try to just do something with the metaverse. And this is the one actually that I try to summarize everything in one page of the what is metaverse in the current and the present. But I will let you know that just one key point in here is that still not the consensus about what will be the ultimate metaverse will look like because of the, for example, that the driving force, for example, the Meta is they driving in mostly they relate to they're starting for like internet company and like a social networking. So they are mostly focused on like a virtual space. So the current mainstream you can think about is a virtual. So it's a virtuality is the you can have experience the whole thing virtual, except that you can join as an avatar. So your digital representative can join, and also like buildings or like other can be linked to your virtual space. So we call like augmented virtuality. That means that the physical space join as a part of the virtual space, but the virtual space comprised of the space, the 3D space and object, and this object will be completely virtual, digital, or some object will be relate to real life, like an object like you and me, people or the robot or the other machine or the place, land. And this is the current mainstream. And then I showed before about all the industry application now is focused on this space. And another space actually that traditionally we know about is we call reality plus virtual reality, that called augmented reality. So it is based on our real life. So our physical space and time and all of the physical object and humans and other things. But actually the virtual thing overlay with that. So you know about the augmented reality space. So this is the one actually the based on real life. And then virtual space be joined and merge. And then this is one actually the driving is a long history. The augmented reality devices like manufacturers and other companies, especially the for example, recently this is based on like a most interface in the virtual space, traditional PC or some of the XR devices join. But in this space, actually, they're mostly targeting using the traditional smartphone. So it's a small footprint of your screen, but you will overlay with like a location or some other you can know about like a Pokemon, something like that. So this is based on another one driving is mostly the traditional manufacturer like Apple is driving in this direction, but the most of people now think of a metaverse is a space in virtual space joined by the real space. But we have another space is the virtual space and the real space mirroring, and then they connected through the data stream. That's the one we call digital twins. So you can see that they are exactly the physical twin and virtual twin, and then they are connected. So it's a kind of like a virtual real is a real-time interaction and connected. And we know about like in between hybrid between the virtual reality and augmented reality. In hybrid, we call mixed reality. So mixed reality is not completely set up, but some of the example is a Microsoft HoloLens. So they are in crossover in the virtual space and real space, and then try to do like in mix in hybrid between. And then who knows, in finally complete merge. And then we call this kind of thing, you have seen in the many like science fiction movies like Ready Player One, Matrix, all the the representative movies to show the what if the future of the metaverse will be in the completely merged, and then you cannot difference between it in real space or virtual space. But we don't know when it will happen. Okay, so to understand, like for example, what is a metaverse infrastructure? So we are currently we today are going to focus on infrastructure. But you can think about the complete metaverse system architecture is in the fundamental building block in the bottom layer is infrastructure. So this is very important. Without this infrastructure, that the full scope of the metaverse application cannot happen. So that's why that we are thinking about. But another layer, we can think of an application, you know, that like a virtual space and real space. I already explained, like they can be merged, and then some of the avatars and your virtual object and your virtual like space. And also, like for example, like I mentioned about the make money is we know about like a Web3 based like NFT or some of the virtual object, cryptocurrencies, like a creative economy. That kind of layer is in the application layer. They are linked between the like a virtual space, real space I explained before. And then there is they call Metaverse engine. Actually, the Metaverse engine is an enabler between the like for example, you have a like real space entities like and then you can digitalize, and then you can put into your virtual space. So you need like a digitalization tools, and then also like you need to for humans to like explore your virtual space. Actually, you need the interface we call XR device, AR, VR, XR, MR, some kind of thing. And also, you know that like for example, interact with like a virtual space, you need to put something that we call like a building like engines, like a Unity or some of the about well-known like a 3D space building engines you need. And then also for the like a digital twin to connect to your physical and real space, we call digital twin. So the digital twin is one of the like metaverse engine to enablers. And also there are other kind of like AI is important to make this thing happen. So you can think about the like a 3 layers big application layer as a user interface layer, or the front end in the website. You can think of the front end. And then in the back end, we have like an engine in like a middleware. So they sit in the middle, and then they interface through this infrastructure. So in the infrastructure, the 3 basic thing is communication and computation and storage. So we have this kind of, so this is one view that, and then I also give you some another example, very similar. So here is one more infrastructure. Actually, this is IoT sensor network is kind of the, you can put in the like just network layer, or you can put in like computing layer. For example, to make you like the digital twin, you need to make a digital representation of your physical entity and connect to the virtual entity. And the Internet things provide the data to monitoring your environment, sensing your environment, they connect them. So it can be like a sensor actuator can put in the engine or the application layer or the network layer. So it options how you architect the whole system, but very similar. So the infrastructure, the big 3 thing is communication, computation, and then storage is some kind of data management system, I can call it. Okay, so this is the same thing. So what kind of the like main building block of the metaverse looks like? And then and then infrastructure wise, that what kind of require that steer to like enable like for example we talk about like a lot of people are get together and spend 1 hour, and then it required a lot of like computing power and the network power, something like that. So for example, Intel, the chip vendor, like a chip manufacturer, they think about 1,000-fold of the increasing computing capability. So this means that like not only the chip and another capability related to computing will require improve. And also like, for example, need a lot of data centers. So data management, cloud, and the data like storage. We need this kind of infrastructure to further progress. And also like recently the Meta in a like a mobile congress is Mobile World Congress, to talk about the metaverse cannot be possible without a better cellular network, but it can be like a cellular, mobile, or whatever. So for example, we need like a high bandwidth and very low latency required to like you provide a seamless experience in a immersed measure metaverse space. And also we need like if you want to like your metaverse space as open architecture. That means that nobody actually govern you. Like, for example, recent the current Web 2 is based on some main driving like a Google or the Facebook or some big companies actually they govern this infrastructure. But there is some another movement is a Web3 based on decentralized network, and then nobody will govern. So it's completely decentralized, and then we need to some this kind of the infrastructure require, and also like decentralized storage is so if you go into decentralization, then you will the decentralized network and computing and storage is exactly the we see in the physical space. Okay, so here is one thing that it's Metaverse also infrastructure require the standardization. Like the standardization is a very familiar in network like a 4G, 5G, 6G, or the like a 802 or 11 or something like that. That number is representing some standardization. So we may need this kind of standardization, and then also here is like we need like a lot of the collaborative effort to cross optimization all network infrastructure component, and so we'll also need like all kind of like protocols, and it's not yet defined because we need to in parallel other architecture and other infrastructure will be developed at the same time. So it cannot be standalone network, but it will be consider all our other layers, other components. But it is time to start if you really envision in the future will be people gather together in the metaverse and spend a lot of time. It will be an essential part of the everyday life, and then we need to like provide a better service. And to serve that, actually we need this kind of the standardization is required. And then why I consider the sustainability. So why I make the title the sustainable infrastructure, because you know that recently there are a lot of the worry about for example, climate change, and then carbon emission, and then like a warming of our environment will give you the serious problem like disasters and something like that. So we need to consider about in the global report, and then UN, and then also like industry wise and nation wise, there are a lot of effort to work like a climate change risk like to like managing, and then how you can make like a net, we call like a net zero. So that means that the carbon emission to make a zero in the certain time, usually the timeline is year 2050. So and then there are a lot of the effort to, for example, US government actually the $1.2 trillion to like to make like infrastructure. This is not just the metaverse infrastructure. This is a digital infrastructure is one, but the other infrastructure, social network infrastructure, or other like society needed infrastructure is updated for the like a sustainable. And then there are a lot of companies also effort in this effort. So we need to consider that in this starting times, the metaverse is just started. So not only the like technically, and then also like in service wise is very good, and then nice and high quality, and then a lot of the secure, but also we need to concern about our environment, the people to contribute to this metaverse will be to the contribute to people's care, and then the society, and also like economic care we need it. So this is one example that recently the World Economic Forum, they initiate some event, like for example, they get up like global companies. As far as I know, that there are like now about more than 50 companies that get together, and then they sign it that they will be collaborated develop their sustainable infrastructure and metaverse like application. So starting from the starting, they will care. And then this is the one actually the one thing also, like for example, recently they call responsible metaverse applications. Actually, this is one I did before in my previous webinar. And then also I participate in for example, the Meta, the allocated some money to contribute to this kind of how to develop responsibly. So responsibly means that take care of the sustainability. So sustainability means that take care of the people, and then take care of the like society, take care of the environment, and then this is everything like in every component, like it can be like sustainable, means secure, and then privacy preserve, and also like ethnical and many things like a carbon emission. They control about the carbon emission, for example, like the based on Web3, and then the blockchain. Some of the like the consensus mechanism generate a lot of carbon and emission based on their energy consumption. So it is like a industry movement worldwide now, that why we now think about the sustainable metaverse infrastructure, because it is already initiated by, for example, global leaders and companies join together, and then this is a starting time. So we need to care about the sustainability with this kind of metaverse infrastructure, and additionally we need some other like architectures developing. We need to consider the sustainability. So having said that, I will start my sharing. Okay, so we'll start our speakers presentation and talk. So Nenad, you're the first. Could you start now?
Yeah, Alex, thank you very much. I hope you can see my presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Just give me a moment. Okay, so thank you very much for the introduction. And I'm Nenad Gligoric. I'm representative for the IOTA Foundation, and today I will explain you briefly about Metaverse 0.1 IA at the beginning. So I'm going to focus on what we have at this moment and what would be needed to be done from the perspective of distributed ledger technology, because our foundation is mostly working around that. So I will just give you a brief overview of IOTA. So we are a non-for-profit foundation based in Germany and in UK. We are working toward developing open source distributed ledger technology for everybody. So pandan to the Linux Foundation, which does the similar with operating system. We are working toward fully open source distributed ledger technology that can be used cross sectors. And we also cooperate with a significant number of industry as well as research and academia. So how do you imagine a metaverse? So if you question yourself, you can get a lot of different answers. For someone, the metaverse is two guys playing a video game. For someone else, is a concert in the VR or the game-like experience in a sandbox environment. For the other answer can be that they would like to have more realistic scenario. Let's for instance, I would give a Seoul first metaverse city that targets to provide public administration services using the VR. And at some point we will need to choose, but it is clear that if you're speaking about the elements of metaverse, that we basically have everything now here. So to have 0.1, and if I ask you how you envision metaverse, most of the answers can go into the direction of the matrix sequels, and for sure one day we will get there. But at this particular moment, it is clear that there is no single definition of the metaverse, and that we are at the beginning of the journey. So the idea of bringing thousands of people together in a virtual space is not exactly new, and we experienced those in a Fortnite game where 27 million people were attended a concert. So the question arises, what are the big deals around creating metaverse at this particular time? We need to create 3D worlds. We need to create and have the VR experience. So to have a hardware and the right gear, the low latency with the good connectivity, of course, AI and other algorithms. I took this image from one of the online repository, and I see it replicated over the multiple online sources. But I cannot say I can fully agree with it. It's try to mimic the OCI layers and how we envisioned the different layers of the internet today and the infrastructure from network to application. But I would say it needs some adjustments. So I was free to generate something in that regard. And I see, Alex, you also have some nice that we maybe can merge after the panel. From the UI level, we sure would need to have experience related to decentralized applications, VR environment, gaming, marketplaces. Of course, to achieve all of that, some kind of a wallet will be needed. From the other side, we will need to have developer experience and the software development kits. Unity here is just added as an example, not on instance from my side, because to be able to create cross-platform experience that supports different standards, you will have something that is very multi-platform and very open. Unity works with different standards from Microsoft 3D. You probably know that Microsoft has their own standard for Xbox, and Sony do the similar for the PlayStation. And there are WebGL and OpenGL and other open source that should be taken into account. So we should not go proprietary if we want to go large. Then what is probably missing and what I would change on both pictures, so the previous one and Alex, yours one, is having the blockchain as a part of infrastructure. So for me, at least, blockchain is something that should help us actually provide the ownership of some assets. It can provide Anchor identities, and it can provide actually some features that the centralization brings that are really necessary in the metaverse. From the service level, also, I will not go into much details, but you would need to have a really good way of rendering objects and crossing them between different clients. So probably some compression mechanism will be used, not to transfer all data of the 3D model, but the metadata. This is why some kind of metadata repository is needed. And speaking about the connectivity, if you are familiar with the latency and the distance from the sources, as much as your distance from the actual source, the latency is bigger. So we will need to have access points or our phones that are very close to the source. And this is why I think it's very important to have this network slicing, network function virtualization, and content delivery networks. So Netflix resolved this issue very elegantly by providing the data storage closer to a source. So this something similar can happen here. So why is blockchain then again important in this scenario? Let's say you can have mobile phones around you, providing you a resource in back with incentive in form of a token, so that you can have no latency scenario. So this is just one of scenario. Of course, there is a lot more. And what is, I would say, also interesting to highlight. Just a moment for someone. Okay, so to highlight why a blockchain in metaverse is so needed. In real world, government, companies, and individual want more control, and if we allow them to happen the same in metaverse, it can go south. Why is that? Because at least from my personal perspective, I see that avatar of mine is a digital twin of my personality. And if I cannot secure my data, secure my avatar, and if I'm not sure that I own it, in that case, everything can be lost. From the other side, the most resources for developing metaverse nowadays are revolving around big industry guys. So Google, Meta, or previously Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, but also these critical infrastructure companies like NVIDIA, Qualcomm, and not to forget the big gaming industry. So I see all of them like just a provisioner of the infrastructure. If you can provide the blockchain layer in between and give the word out to creators and to community to actually be able to create their worlds on top of this infrastructure. So if we want a real metaverse, we need to have the technology that support future decentralized application. So we need scalable blockchain, affordable blockchain that is also feeless and that enables interoperability. So meaning we have a lot of different blockchains today. You need to ensure that you can exchange the data between different ledgers. And this is very difficult now. So I will just give one example of why is a blockchain at this point very cumbersome. If you, let's say, have an NFT, and if you want to sell it over an OpenSea or any other platform, for minting an NFT to a blockchain, you pay a fee. Then you want to list it on an OpenSea, you pay an additional fee. When you sell it, you pay for the commission, and also you need to reattach to another person, and there is another fee imposed. So basically, for selling something that costs $800, you pay $200 of fees, which is clearly something that is not going to work if we want the blockchain as one of the core decentralization technologies in a metaverse. So how we can have a scalable and feeless decentralized ledger technologies? I would not maybe call this a shameless commercial, but I would just speak of how we see it at the moment from the IOTA Foundation, because at the moment we are developing open source distributed ledger that is based on completely different consensus mechanism. And this consensus mechanism doesn't require proof of work, meaning that all transactions are feeless. So you can transfer data, write data into the ledger without any fees. And it uses DAG algorithm. It's more in form of a graph than in form of a blockchains. So except these fees, this also impose a lot of efficiency around energy and also around scalability. So what is the core development from our side that can fuel the next generation metaverse as well as 0.1? IOTA network is developed Shimmer that now is going to release tokenization framework that is also framed under the name Stardust with a tokenization framework. Anyone can mint their own tokens, including the native tokens. Else also NFTs can be, which is very interesting, can host another token, meaning that you can have a plethora of different scenarios when you merge between token A, B, and C and create the token D. Of course, this is something which would be very expensive nowadays. And in near future, after Stardust released, this becomes reality. So how is this possible? So Stardust adds utility to the Tangle, which is how IOTA calls its blockchain. So we have layer 2 smart contract tokens that are created on a smart contract chains, and we of course support more than ERC20, which is the most popular one. So except the EVM virtual machine, we are aiming and we are including all different protocols that are required to have this cross-chain interoperability. So to conclude the story, for Metaverse, we need feeless, scalable, and interoperable infrastructure. As IOTA protocol has different consensus mechanism, it opens capability to be feeless with smart contracts on second layer that enable horizontal scaling and also interoperability. So there is no complicated bridges that you will need to achieve when you need to, let's say, move assets from A to B in a metaverse, or when you need to have some more complex ways of creating third NFT out of the two. Thank you for your attention. I hope I did open this talk with some interesting perspective on the topic. So Alex, I will now give the floor back to you.
Thank you, Ninette. Yeah, I think that the IOTA is one of the potential like candidate for the next generation for the metaverse infrastructure, especially with the Web3 for the like open metaverse architecture. Okay, so next, Doug. Doug is literally the expert in network. He was formerly with Nokia, so I'm excited to host him.
Well, thank you. Yes, I can't share right now. The person has.
Yeah, I think that Nenad, can you start your sharing first?
Yeah, maybe if you, Alex, since you're the host.
Yeah, I can. I will stop.
If that changes it. Oh, Nenad, can you stop your, because I give you the, yeah. There.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I have some delays in signal. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for this opportunity to talk. As mentioned, I worked for Nokia and Motorola for 33 years. I'm part of the People-Centered Internet organization. We meet twice a month. Vince Cert, who was one of the inventors of TCP/IP, which is coming up on its 50-year anniversary, is one of the founding members. And so I took this presentation focusing more on standards, but creating a people-centered metaverse of abundance and opportunity for all. And how do we transition from Web 2 to Web 3? How do we learn, workshop, and play in the 2030s that will minimize our carbon footprint? That's some of the things I'm very interested in. I'm focusing right now, I'm a volunteer affiliate member at the KU School of Nursing and working at doing other consulting specifically around XR metaverse healthcare. But also working on a number of other projects as well. So Alvin Graylin, he took this slide. In fact, I would encourage everyone to follow Alvin. He's the president of HTC China, and he his definition of the metaverse is the internet plus 3D plus VR or XR. And of course, I'm just adding technology salad language, but it's around connectivity, which Alex, you showed, and I totally agree with that. It's around connectivity, cloud, AI, digital twin simulation, the digital wallet, NFTs, avatar, blockchain, and other things that we cannot imagine. So I personally like immersive technology, but the metaverse is what we're calling it today, and so that's what we're using. So taking a little bit of step back, I mean, technology and computing has gone from a number of cycles. Mary Meeker, that she showed us in 2013. We had the 1D technology of mainframes to personal computing, but using DOS. And then in the 1990s, we came along and we started using 2D technology. But we're, as humans, we're 3D creatures. So we're how do we look at 3D and what was the opportunity for 3D, which is immense, but also has challenges, especially around sustainability. So, my background, like I said, I've worked 33 years at Motorola, Nokia, so I have a device focus. When people talk about, what is the internet, people think about their PC, the average person PC or a smartphone. But of course, there's the network is so much more. That's my expertise. So when I joined Motorola in '89, there were 7 million subs in the world. A cell phone with 3 pounds had 30-minute battery life, cost $3,000, and every 10 years we got a new generation. And so right now we're in the 5G generation and starting to develop technology on the 6G generation that's really starts to optimize for the metaverse and immersive technology. So it's really, we're kind of at this perfect storm of technology that lets us have this opportunity of the metaverse as well. 4 years ago, I put together this, wrote a blog on the 21st century, the century of the billions and billions. And this is around sustainability as well and the metaverse. In 1802, we had 1 billion humans on the planet, 2002, 1 billion, 200 years afterwards, 1 billion cell phones, then 2011, 1 billion smartphones. In 2014, actually, there were more cell phones in the world than there were humans on the world. And, so I started saying, okay, what's going to happen in the future? So actually this year, we're expected to have 1 billion 5G users on the planet. I'm predicting 2027 we'll have 1 billion metaverse users. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens, as people learn, work, play, and live healthcare in the metaverse, and how we use this technology. The comment about, and I agree with that statistic of people will spend at least an hour a day in the metaverse by 2026, and what technology needs to happen to make this work. I went from being a weekly kind of user of the metaverse to a daily user. And that's because I started interacting with friends from around the world, playing, exercising in the metaverse with games, socialization and so forth. So, I think very quickly we're going to transition. Right now, 32% of people who experience the metaverse are doing it daily. By the way, 344 times you look at your smartphone a day. So we use our smartphones daily. The question is when we use the metaverse immersive technology daily as well. As expected, PwC says by 2030 that this will be about a $1.5 trillion opportunity, a huge opportunity for job development and growth and optimization. That's a little bit where the digital twin comes away with how do you optimize your world, how do you optimize your life using digital twin technology, AI technology. So I think this is going to be really interesting to see where this is going. Qualcomm, of course, is one of the leaders in the metaverse. In fact, Hugo Schwartz just gave a presentation at AWE yesterday. It's online, talking about where the devices are and where they're going. I like this slide because right now, devices are still clunky. They weigh a pound, like the Quest and so forth. But in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to have smart glasses that weigh, 80, 90 grams. You won't be looking down at your smartphone. You'll be looking out into the world with your smart glasses. And I believe that's where the technology is going. And so what does that mean to sustainability? Right now, there's, from this site, there's 169 virtual and augmented reality headsets out there. This very similar to the 80s and 90s on phones. There were a lot of phones out there, only a few won. So it'll be interesting to see who will be the winners in these by 2030. But everyone's, they see this huge opportunity. So how are they doing the investment on this technology? So in fact, I worked with Dr. Angelina Dayton. She's put 30,000 people into VR. I've only put probably about 50 people. Though I'm working on one project, we're going to put 50 nursing students into VR by this next semester. Like how do people experience this technology? Do they like it? Do they get nauseous? These are some of the questions. Just as a reference, in 2007, when the iPhone launched, there was about 122 million smartphones sold by all the vendors. Apple sold 3 million of those. 4 years later, we had 1 billion people using smartphone technology. So very quickly, we can have 1 billion people using this technology. And then after that, 5 billion people using this technology. So, the question is, when will that happen? I'm predicting 1 billion people by 2027. We'll see if that's accurate or not. We're still struggling, right? The internet is really Web 2.0. This is a slide from the end of last year. The market capitalization right now, the metaverse Web 3.0 is only a very small fraction of that. And there'll be winners and losers over the next 5 years. So we'll see what happens. There'll be gains, there'll be losses. We'll see who are the winners. But by 2030, this technology will, in my opinion, will replace the smartphones, where you have smart glasses, again, looking out into the world. And what will that mean to sustainability and how we use the internet? So this slide kind of shows this transition going from the PC world to the mobile world, the world I work in. We were, only 7% of the internet in 2011. By 2017, 50% of people's time spent on the web was using mobile technology, and it just keeps growing and growing. So I think you'll see that more and more, especially when instead of looking at an 85-inch screen television or monitor, you have a smart glasses that shows the equivalent, but it shows you at any time you want to see it. So I think that technology will happen, and be very interesting to see the share of the mobile internet and the share of the metaverse on how people use their time. This is, We Are Social. If you want to follow one site, they have like 300 slides on how people use the internet, social media, and so forth. And they do it every quarter. So here we use about 7 hours a day using the internet, of which half of that is mobile. So the question is how many, when will we get to, a couple hours a day using the metaverse technology? And then will it be almost 100% that, we won't be typing on our computers. We won't be looking down at our smartphones. We will be looking out with our smart glass technology. Of course, COVID made a big difference about this. The amount of people spent online has gone up dramatically, and these trends will change a little bit, but people are now used to being online a lot, just like we're at this call today. So it's almost 7 hours a day are spent in media, and We Are Social kind of breaks this down to different areas. They just started looking at tracking, XR technology, metaverse technology, but it's still below the line right now. So the question is, can we get to the 1 hour a day by 2026? Technology changes very quickly. I think the answer is yes still, but we'll see where the devices that come out in the next 3 years that will make a difference, that will go from smartphones to smart glasses to metaverse technology that people wear all the time. So one of the topics on this call was about standards. In fact, I just saw that there was this announcement by the World Economic Forum, who will govern the metaverse, talking about a forum that looks about equitable interoperability metaverse. Walmart's part of this group, Microsoft's part of this group. So people, different standards bodies are looking at, what standards come out on the metaverse, what standards will win, what standards will go away. I worked in both LTE, the 4G standard, or 3GPP, the cellular guys, and then the IEEE had the WiMAX standards, the 802.16 standards, and only the 3GPP standards won, and WiMAX went away. So it'll be interesting to see what standards out. Everyone's developing these standards: Web3, W3C, OpenXR, CloudXR, IEEE, and then the 3GPP standards as well. So this will be something to track. Also highlight that ATIS, the standards here in the United States, but all the standards bodies on 5G or 6G technology are looking at Green G, the path towards sustainable 6G technology. So that's something to follow as well. A good book to follow if you're interested in standards is Spatial Web: How Web 3.0 Will Connect Humans, Machines, and AI to Transform the World by Dan Mapes. Great book. So one thing to think about from a cloud perspective and sustainability, XR Cloud and devices, I believe have a significant role to play in reducing waste. I just learned a statistic recently that 2% of e-waste is landfill volume, but 70% of toxic waste comes because of that e-waste. And if you look at ARM, they're expecting to have 1 trillion IoT devices by 2035. This huge growth of e-waste, and then you have the solar panels and so forth. So we're going to be continuing to generate more and more e-waste. And if we do not come up with a way to manage this e-waste, instead of having people's waste, from their home and just throw it out into the landfill, but manage it in a better way, companies be more sustainable, we're going to have a real big problem with toxic substances and just waste in general. Alvin Graylin, I got this slide from him as well, used by permission, where you're going from screens right now, where we're maximum screens, where you go to a restaurant, you go to your house and look at how many screens you have. And so we have all these 20, 30 screens around us, and can we come into smart glasses? So instead of throwing away an 85-inch television, we throw away 85-gram smart glasses to get the next generation up. And we don't throw it into the landfill, we throw it in our recycling bill. And then we let the web, the cloud providers do the management of the e-waste as they need to upgrade this network. So David Sordani, again, I use this by permission. He gives some great overviews of this, but he talks about 5G, Cloud XR, and the killer applications around that. and where we're going from phase one, which is 2020 to 2030, and then by phase two, 2025 timeframe. It's just this order of magnitude more capacity available. So we're at this tip of the iceberg, and all of a sudden there's just going to be this explosion of this technology. And then the question is, okay, with all this technology coming out, how do we make it more sustainable? Of course, this is the problem. We have greenhouse gas emissions. COVID knocked us down more than our estimate, but right now the trends are that we're going to increase here in the United States and around the world more and more greenhouse gases. So we've got to figure out ways to solve that. Right now, the mobile communication uses 2 billion tons of CO2 emissions, but what we do is we avoid about 10 times greater emissions because we have communication, because we're doing what we're doing right now. We're not traveling, and that reduces our greenhouse gas emissions. GSMA, our mobile association, produces on sustainability. This is a last year's report, or 2 years report ago. They have a recent one on how to make a more sustainable world. Because we have to do this, because we are needing more and more bandwidth and data, for immersive technologies. So, but like Nokia as an example, they're going to reduce their greenhouse gases by the end of this decade, while growing capacity by 27 times. Because we got to figure out how to do this. There's going to be 7 trillion wireless devices, by the end of the decade, or early 2030s. And so the question is, how do we make a more sustainable world? So building a sustainable metaverse, if my takeaway from this talk is, if we grow the physical economy by 2x, we're going to grow CO2 gas emissions. And I want to grow the economy because I want people to live a more beneficial life. But if by growing the metaverse, we can grow the digital economy by a factor of 10 and reduce our physical footprint and our CO2 gas emissions, also by traveling less as well. So instead of buying more, creating more physical objects, create more virtual objects. So Peter Diamandis, he has this one phrase, and I modified it, said, if we're going to get to net zero CO2 emissions, it's likely in 20 years, we'll look at those days when we commute to the office and just work at a desk, or to school all day to be bored, or to travel all over the world as an insane practice. If we are to get a net zero CO2 emissions, we need to have more virtual objects, less physical objects. In San Francisco, 45% of greenhouse gas emissions is from transportation. The greenest and safest mile you can travel is by traveling virtually. Just one event, if you travel to it, it creates about 1 ton of CO2 emissions. By the way, the average annual CO2 emissions is 4.5 tons. So basically 1 trip, 4 trips equals what the average person in the world does. So, we're also generating a lot of things. This is the Internet of Things. When I gave a presentation in 2015, talked about, how do we have the Internet of Things? Right now, there's about 10 trillion disposable items and other items, 80 billion apparel items. And, if trends continue, we're going to go to this, 1,000 devices per person. And so how do we manage that as well? So bottom line is, we got to figure out how to manage and be more efficient on this. And so, it's expected maybe we'll have 20 trillion things by 2040, and we have to create a more sustainable world. And I would argue by going from the digital physical objects to the virtual objects, something that I'm very interested in. So in summary, the cellular phones and smartphones brought the internet to everyone. This technology is coming. It's going to be as easy to use as a smartphone in the next 3 to 5 years. So the metaverse technology can decrease travel and reduce physical objects and build a more sustainable world. So looking forward to our discussion on the panel. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, I think that, that it's, I'm also starting my first career is the telecom. So I was a government officer, like regulating operators. And then so I starting my experience is a standardization in the ITU or something like in like a 2G, starting from the 2G mobile communication. But that the topic today, think about now, you not just think about this performance and economics, right? You need to think about like a sustainability, care about the people, environment, right? It's a different changing, right? And then it's fascinating to find out expert like dog, because I started this kind of initiative 1 year ago by certain reason that I was working on in the sustainability, traditional sustainability, what we call ESG now. And then I saw traditionally have a digital technology and try to combine the two, because it is very important. Technology supporting the innovation supporting, and also like innovation to also have from sustainability, because for example that the making your product or infrastructure sustainable means that it can be more efficient, the energy efficient, cost efficient, everything, and high quality. So it was fantastic because I can share finally with some other out there expert like Dog and also like Nenad and all of the today's experts that share their insight about how you make your a metaverse infrastructure technology, not only for the high quality and serve for the high quality service, can be sustainable, right? That's important. And next to it, the TK is another important thing is about the sustainability is how to make your IT system or your metaverse secure, because they need to protect your data privacy and other things. So, and also like how you increase your performance. So he will share his experience in edge networking with the security. TK, could you please start?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm trying to find my, let me see here. Where is my video pin? I can, what is something a little bit different?
I think that you have a slide show maybe in bottom.
Yeah, I have them. You can see my slides, right?
Yeah, I can see that.
But I'm trying to get my video up, but let's see, start video. I don't know if that works. Maybe it does work. I don't know.
If not working, then you can make bigger the current like for example your size of your current.
Do you see my slides at this point?
Yeah, if you cannot,
okay.
You can.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, let me move around on this. So let me start out by saying, okay, we have heard a lot of very uplifting things on the metaverse, and there's an exciting world in front of us. And I'm going to be talking a little bit lower layers, that the kind of a foundational layer for the metaverse. I consider that I'm going to argue the point about the edge networking, and especially with the security, that how is it an essential ingredient for a metaverse to exist. And so just a little bit about me. I have spent some time in the previous life in the Bell Labs, quite a bit as a researcher, and then I worked for also like Doug. Most of my time has spent in the telecommunication industry with NEC, number of years, Fujitsu, Hitachi, and so forth. And then also I did work for defense organization, defense contractors for the US DoD. Some sensitive projects there. Also was very helpful and Rockwell Collins and so forth, very much in the forefront. And also I did manage to get into these startups and ran a few startups in the Silicon Valley. And now I'm running a consulting company in the edge networking and the security. So that's kind of about me. And so my talking points, or the points that I like to discuss with you folks, is I'm going to start with the simplified view. You have seen very in-depth view and very exotic views of the metaverse. So in this case, you might be a little disappointed with this slide, but it's a more simplified view for me to make the point about the networking and the importance of the networking to help support the metaverse. And then I'm going to deduce from there some needs from the metaverse that will translate to the edge networking such, or the technologies that need to support the metaverse. And I'm keying on basically on two technologies. Obviously, there's not enough time to go all over technology, but I think Doug summarized quite a bit of many different technologies that are coming together, and Loïc too, and I think Nenad also did the same thing. So at the end, I'm going to stress on the distributed portion of the edge networking and how that is posing the challenges and the security consideration. So going to that simplified view, my metaverse world looks kind of like this from a perspective that I'm looking at. So basically, there are like two levels exist. One is physical world or the physical universe, and then the other one is the metaverse that we are trying to create. Now, all these wonderful things that we are seeing already, the digital assets, for example, bitcoins, the cryptocurrencies, and the NFTs, which are non-fungible, but they already exist, and there's a exchange and virtual markets are being generated. There are virtual interactive games that are happening, digital twins are happening who are representing the human, for example, and also other objects from the physical world taking to the virtual world and interacting on behalf of us. And avatars is obviously is another criteria where the human actually get it directly represented by avatars. And there is nothing to say that avatars cannot be created by avatars themselves. So, there's no end to it. If you start to explore that and expand that universe, there is going to be a lot of things happening there. Just like any other things, there will be pitfalls and there will be challenges. So in the physical world, what do we have? Okay, well, I kind of put in two categories. On the top, you see mostly the kind of things that will be interacting with the virtual world, those through the machine, for example, AR, XR, those kind of machine, haptics machine, and tablets and PCs even. And then you'll have some robotics and AI machines also probably will be participating on that, not just the human that will be interacting on that. And that's kind of dangerous world. IoTs also are going to be communicating through that. Now the engines or the power behind these things are going to come from many different things, such as AI, ML engine. It's almost given that artificial intelligence or machine learning will play a significant role in developing this kind of power behind these interactions and also creating such autonomous interaction capabilities. You will see 3D engines, obviously, we already see those, and cloud data center obviously is a big resource center that where it's going to be. But I'm going to be focusing on the powered beyond 5G, especially the multi-access portion of the edge, multi-access, computing, basically MEC, that is powering the edge, and that is being fostered by the 5Gs and the 6Gs and so forth. Is one of the things that we should not forget is a big virtualization component that is staying underneath, that is basically SDN and a B, and these are the prime mover for the virtual network that we already see exist and programmability of the networks. So going to the next one. So basically it's all about what? It's all about the user experience, right? We always go towards things that where we find the experience to be much more pleasant, much more productive as such. So it is extremely crucial for Metaverse to succeed that the user experience has to be superb. So, and one of the key components that I see that underneath it that must be there is that you have to bring this experience almost in real time. Now, it's much easier said than done, and everybody can, I think, agree on that part, but we are nevertheless engineers and everybody, all the architects together, we're trying very hard to bring it as close as possible to the near real-time experience. So we are trying to capitalize on the human reaction time and so forth, and trying to make sure that we're staying under that latency and also the high bandwidth that we need to provide this kind of things. So for example, autonomous manifestations of virtual objects are going to happen. Now, these has to happen in a way that almost is, basically without human interactions right at that point, because you will have those things programmed. And there are many virtual objects are going to be created, obviously under the supervision of human, but not in a way that it is going to add some latency. And the challenges are going to be behavioral physics, including those virtual objects and so forth, how they will behave, and the physical objects that are interacting with those virtual objects. Now the physics has to dictate high accuracy. I mean, can't afford to make mistakes. Now we're talking about billions and trillions of objects maybe residing in those things and acting in some ways that affects our life or will be affecting our life. And the security obviously is a very prime concern there on the real time. So the interaction to the real time, in real-time interaction to the physical world is extremely important. Now, how much latency we're injecting on that, that's also something that we need to pay attention to. And just to put some perspective, right now our gamings and all those things is in a very rather low resolution, many aspect compared to what we'll be seeing then. So right now it can tolerate even as much as 100 milliseconds of the latency as such for a gaming, and it can still be happy in 3 megabits, but that's not going to be the case in VR and AR. We are approaching almost one VR experience with 80 to 100 megabits per second, and AR also definitely 100 megabits. Now these are in a 5G perspective, if you look at it today, it's barely possible. 100 megabits and so forth, just coming into the fruition. But theoretically, 5Gs are going to take us to the 1 gig range. And if it happens, we will be started to see many of these things are being in a common, usage from the people. Now, on the application latency for the VR and AR, obviously drastically lower, less than 20 millisecond ideally, but I think they would most likely like to see it in the less than 10 millisecond. Now 5G is not there yet, but 5G has a promise of making it 5 millisecond latency, if possible, in sometime in the future. Now I believe that would be going to be pretty much transitioning to the 6G, and now release 18 that is going on, which is going to be mature. Now this is, we're talking about the 3GPP projects that undertakes the standards for the 5G and the 6Gs. And if you're following those things already, that that the release 15 and 16 was already published. Now we're working on the 17, it's already almost done, or if not done completely. I think it was this summer that was supposed to have been finished officially. And now in 2024, we'll be seeing release 18 on the 5G. And so these latencies are very much in their mind, how to bring down the network latency. Now, this is just the transmission latency we're talking about that the 5G or the 6G can do. But there are other latencies, such as the processing side and also collection side, storage side, and things like that. That's outside of this equation. But 10 millisecond is still the user experience latency time. So that's still very challenging. That will include all those latencies together. So you can see why the network needs to be even less, much less than that in order to give a good experience. Now, overall, basically these KPIs are going to be approaching about this kind of uses without going into any more exotic than this, like holograms or holotype of lenses or something that is, multiple interactivities, things like that might be requiring a lot more than I can fathom at this moment. But so these overall things are approaching about 1 gig per application and 10 gigabits per usage, because you'll have multiple applications going on at the same time. And then the latencies you'll be approaching is about 10 millisecond. So where are these leading to? So here I create a little bit of busy slide, but I will try to see if I can make some sense out of it to you folks. So this is, I call a distributed edge scenario, and for the Web3 and the Metaverse. And I'll tell you a little bit later also that why edge is so important. But I'm creating the edge scenario. Let me explain this. On the very left-hand side, you see all these user elements or the equipments. They do have processing capabilities, and not to be discounted completely. They will be, in an ideal sense of the edge network, can be utilized under an untapped resource for computing or other types of actions that is necessary, processing. There could be some GPUs that are unused and so forth. And the ideal edge networking should be able to allocate those, tasks into some of those categories. These are like the very extreme end of the edge network. And then you move a little bit forward there, from there, then you will see this, as I mentioned earlier, MEC type of edge network, which is like this. you have cell towers, and right behind those cell towers, you have those MEC servers, and you have your G node B, which is basically your base station, right? And then your open RAN, or just RAN, radio access network, resides over here. On these cells, they could be belong to one carrier, and they could be, you know, all connected to one particular edge network, so that you could have multiple servers, or you could have one server shared by all several cells, for example, serving your subscribers. Now, what you're seeing here is another aspect of the distributed cage, that there is nothing to preclude from a person exceeding the resources needed, usage rather, resources needed for the metaverse type of application, especially that is go beyond a regional node B resource that can afford on the edge network. So that means you might be jumping to the next career, because that happens to be have also a service in there, and they have their services going on in here. So you might be able to see some inter-carrier type of edge services, and that's what I call cross-carrier edge network. Now, it's not easy. It's not something that is done right now, but it is most likely going to happen, because there's just no way around it. It's just going to happen. Right now, I think the traffics will go all the way to the core network, and then gets obviously directed to these things of billings and access mobility function, roaming function, all those things being shared in here. Now, these things might start to move, in my opinion, closer to the edge when you see a lot of traffic going in these regional areas, but it crosses one boundary of the carrier to the next one. So it doesn't make sense to carry all those loads over here. And even though they are data plane, they has to go through here. I mean, control plane may reside still here and might be controlled through here, but your data plane should travel through here. So this could be like a distributed edge scenario, that you have multiple edge servers closer to your location, as close as possible. That means you're minimizing the latency to the fullest extent you possibly can. But the trick here is that how do you balance your load? How do you assign your tasks so that it's so seamless? For when you exceed the resources in one regional edge area, you have to go to the next one, and you have to try to get to the next one. Now, they have to be calibrated as in terms of the SLA. How much latency that will inject? Is that sufficient for the SLA of the original metaverse tasks that you initiated here? Those are the big questions and the challenges. Now, you can see that the Web3 or the metaverse can also have several layers. You could have, for example, a local metaverse that may reside over here, and then may have some gateways going to the global metaverse, and all these big, huge cloud companies will dominate, obviously, in the cloud centralized data center, and they're actually coming to the edge as well, and will start to carry some of these traffics. Now, in the interest of time, I'm going to move on quickly here. So basically, what I'm trying to do here is making a case for the edge networking under the premises of the beyond 5G type of network, which will keep growing, which are already talking about 6G and 7Gs, and I've been seeing some people talking about 8Gs. I have no idea what that would be, by the way. But primarily, some of the things that attracts the edge on these metaverse, the URLC, which is the ultra reliable low latency communication. That's what you need for the VR, AR, mixed reality, or extended reality, however you like to use your alphabet. And that is the number one criteria, I think, for the user experience. So that can be satisfied by bringing the edge computing into the world and make it a huge foundational pillar, like Alex was showing earlier, for your metaverse. Now, the next thing you have to have is a distributed architecture, which could be a federated and a peer-to-peer. So either one, depending on the efficiency, the most important thing is your efficiency, performance. That's the most important thing. Always we have to remember, and of course it has to be balanced with the cost. And those two things have to be balanced very carefully by all the providers, otherwise nothing will succeed. Now, the scalability is an engineering challenge here, and I think most likely has to be addressed in a decentralized and disaggregated architecture, because your task orchestration, imagine a situation where you have initiated a metaverse task. which has to be decomposed most likely into or served by many microservices. And these many of these applications will reside in the containers and will be created through the microservices, even in serverless paradigm. And they need to be residing in many different locations, perhaps different clusters even under the, for example, some orchestrator like Kubernetes. Now, when you deploy Kubernetes or something like that, it is you are making it wide open. Your security is extremely important. So you wanted to keep it closely observed, closely surveilled as such. So the moment you go beyond the cluster that is physically located in one location, then you are opening up for security threat. And I'll be talking about a little bit, I'll be touching also on the security side on the next few slides there. But before I go there, so I just wanted you to appreciate how difficult this task is about the scalability, because if you need to grow on your resources, you don't have infinite resources in the edge. You have to go beyond the local edge, meaning just that particular edge node. In the earlier picture that I was showing, you got to go to the next node, next MEC server, which happens to be in the next cell tower, for example. Or there could be, without the cell tower, there could be, you have a server right on the roadside and supplied by the private Wi-Fi 6 or something like that, that in the premises. So all kinds of things are possible, but you still need to keep resources to be as close as possible to your transmission and the what do you call the we have to be able to create our networks as we are.
Oh, TK, I think that your network has some traffic problem.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think that your network has something problem. Maybe.
I apologize. I don't know what happened there. I wasn't expecting it.
But we can continue later because we are run out of time. So
okay.
I think.
All right, I'll stop and then can you give me one more slide and then it stops?
Oh yeah, you
okay.
can conclude.
Let me just finish up by saying that I have, in addition to, if you can still see my slides.
No, it's not.
Cannot see my slides. Okay.
You need to share again.
Yeah, I share again.
Yes, just to show the final one to conclude.
Yeah. Can you see it?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so what I talked about here is edge, right? Mm-hmm. And now I had a few slides on the security, and I'm going to just say quickly on some of the security consideration. Mm-hmm. There is obviously a security consideration that we have to worry about is the distributed portion, and we will use end-to-end encryption and the the robust authentication, mutual authentication is extremely important. Okay, that's the most important criteria in there. And there's going to be all kinds of slicing, and the network slicing through the 5G is going to be a key in terms of how you isolate some of the virtual traffics and put a kind of a virtual boundaries so that you can protect those traffics as best as you possibly can. Okay, I'll stop there because I wanted to give it to Alex. Sorry.
Thank you. I think that if I have more time, I'd like to learn from you because this is a rare topic we can hear from the live view expert. Because for example, the Mark Zuckerberg talk about in a Mobile World Congress about we needed the new type of cellular network, but not just for the cellular network, but we need to think about this kind of like edge computing and the edge network is they will be an essential part. You mentioned it. And then this is the essential, for example, it can be like to solve like especially the latency problem you mentioned about like is a metaverse experience immersive and then seamless experience is essential part. And that's why that we need to consider this as a really core part of it. So we will discuss later. Okay,
Yep.
so finally, yeah, Roy, sorry
So
about that. Yeah,
stop sharing, I guess, right?
yeah, you start
Okay.
sharing. He is really more up to now is more like technology and more like for the like a system infrastructure, something like that. And Loic is more like in sustainability side. So we hear about his view about how to make Web3 decarbonized and more like environmental friendly. Like, yeah. Could you unmute? You are mute now, so could you unmute?
Yeah, can you see my screen? Thank
Yeah.
you, Alex, for the introduction.
Perfect.
And that's actually a very good introduction, Alex. It's a bit now we are going to the side of sustainability coming from the infrastructure, so what will consume the energy. And now we will look at how can we green this energy. And that's why I want to present you Enaverse. So I'm co-founder of Enaverse. Since a few months, I have a background of 10 years in the energy sector, looking first at energy trading, also strategy consulting, and also 4 years in innovation. And actually the reason why, and I think it has been mentioned already today, we want to look at sustainability and renewable energy for the metaverse is because it will consume a lot. And that's, Ali, we saw some numbers today. It's just an additional number. I don't know if it's exactly true, but it just say exactly the same. It will explode in the next year. I mean, the computing power. So, and that will consume a lot of electricity. And as we know, notably from the crisis that we see now today with Ukrainian world and all the discussion around the gas and the energy transition related implication, this will produce CO2. And that's just to give you some ideas. That's an evaluation that we have made. There was the Metaverse Fashion Week a few weeks ago in Decentraland. And there was about 100,000 participants. We estimated that the amount of energy that was consumed, assuming that everybody was participating around 1 hour, the amount of electricity consumed for this event is equal to 100 yearly electricity household consumption in Europe. Now the question is how to solve this, but also at what speed? Because if you look at the last IPCC report, we have only 3 years to change the climate global warming trends. So now a question is, what are the options on the table? And you have generally 3 options when it comes to CO2 management. The first one is the third that you can see on the screen on the left is to pay for CO2. That's a well-known CO2 scheme, CO2 market, emission market. So it's ETS in Europe, but you still emit CO2, right? The second one is that you capture the CO2 that you have produced. That's what that's the so-called carbon offsetting. There is quite a hype around carbon offsetting at the moment, especially to tokenize this carbon offsetting because it's actually a voluntary market. So it's not a regulated market. And so there is a lot of company now starting to tokenize this through blockchain technology and NFT. And now it's a good option, of course. It's generally linked to reforestation project, but it's not really measurable. According to a study from European Commission, 85% of such projects are not really measurable and traceable. That's why the last option and the best actually ton of CO2 is a ton of CO2 that is not produced. And to do so, you need to link it to renewable energy. And that's where Enaverse want to play a role. How do we do that? If you look at your home, if you look at the big data center, it's quite easy to connect it to renewable energy. You just need data from the consumption side and data from the production side. If you're on the same electricity network, so being, for example, in Germany, you could assume, if you don't have congestion on the grid, that what will be consumed at one side will be produced on the other side if you can match the data, and then that you have effectively consumed the green energy. But as soon as you open your laptop, that becoming a real mess because you enter the jungle of data center. We talked a lot about edge infrastructure today. That's a trend on the rise, which will make the infrastructure topology much more complex. And so it becomes impossible to trace exactly the electricity from the source and the consumption level. Luckily, we have some tool in the energy market called the Guarantee of Origin of Renewable Energy Certificate that actually present all over the world. You can see here on the map. and that are actually generated each time a megawatt hour, so a unit of energy is produced. And so we could link actually all over the world green energy with a green consumption. The problem with such a scheme is that, well, it's not really digital. Like it's traders doing the working with that. So it's a nice PDF, like you can see on the left. So it's not programmable. It's also quite huge amount of energy that you are generally considering here. It's like few gigawatt hour, few megawatt hour, while we need here a very granular amount of energy. And as I say, it's not really linked to the, it's difficult to get access. So you need generally to have some license to get access to platform or to be a trader yourself. And that's what we want to solve with Anaverse, starting from creating so an NFT from the PDF, so from the guarantee of origin. So you tokenize this, then you compute the amount of energy that will be consumed around the world based on your application. So for example, if you have a decentralized event, it will consume energy on the blockchain layer. So meaning that you will have consumption based on the consensus of Ethereum, assuming that you're on decentralized. Second, you will have consumption from your end device, and that's also decentralized because you have multiple participants. Then, and it was very well presented just before, you have consumption also from the networking infrastructure and the computing from decentralized itself. So when you will have this calculation done, which will actually be an array with the amount of energy for each country, you just extract from the guarantee of origin the exact amount that is linked to your consumption. And by doing so, you can, in a very traceable way, thanks to the blockchain technology, link the renewable energy that is produced all around the world, and you have effective consumption. So again, here I want to highlight that we talk here about linking renewable energy to the consumption, not about carbon offsetting, because the confusion is is sometimes done. If you look at who could use this technology, well, it needs to be decentralized. So of course, all the Web3 technologies like NFT, Metaverse, crypto, and all other decentralized applications based on Web3 would be targeted customer. But it's also about any edge computing, where actually everywhere when you have digital infrastructure that is decentralized, such application would make sense. Now, if you look at the evolution, and we talked also a lot about trends about Metaverse, I think we all seen that all the trends are saying that it will explode. That's just to give you a number. If you assume that 3 to 7% of the Metaverse activity are willing to be decarbonized, we will arrive to a market of 125 terawatt hour. I don't know if it speaks to you, but it's almost twice the consumption of, it's 1.5, the full yearly consumption of Belgium. And if you look then on the full right here, you see a split between what a Metaverse user will consume. And it will actually quite a lot come from the end user device and from also the networking. And here we assume that there was no AI running, so just like 3D basic animation based on a Minecraft-like animation. So of course, you have AI, if you have advanced also virtual reality image, that will also add some computing power. What will be the option that Anaverse want to offer? And I will be quite fast on this. Well, either it will be an API that you integrate in your application in backend of your Metaverse, or it could be also the opportunity to generate yourself your certificate. So just to give you an example, you want to have a nice dress on Roblox or Decentraland. And so you create, there is the creation of a new dress from a new brand called Anaverse here. And this drop, well, will be proposed on an NFT marketplace. You will have, thanks to the API option, the opportunity to decarbonize the drop of your NFT, so the creation of your NFT. This could be just implicit or explicit, like you can see here on the chart. So people can select, I want it green or I don't want it green. What will happen in behind is that we will automatically calculate where the energy is supposed to be consumed and match that with the guarantee of origin. Now you are really proud of your dress and the drop, and so you want to organize an event on Decentraland, but you want also that the people participating to your event are eco-conscious and that they come knowing that they decarbonize the event, the participation to the event upfront. So for doing that, you can generate a ticket that they can buy on OpenSea and then redeem when they enter the event. So meaning that they will match the amount of electricity that they will consume during the event via the ticket. So of course, there will be plenty of other opportunities. You could think about a full green metaverse. You could think about an NFT marketplace running only on renewable electricity. You could actually also think about phygital experience. So we are now thinking about having NFT ticket for a physical event, but that could also take into account the decarbonization of the event itself. So that was it for me. Hope it was not too overwhelming coming at the end, and looking forward for the next discussion.
Thank you, Loïc. Yeah, I think that this is really fantastic. You know, that I think that I have something that my view about the current situation with like a sustainable ESG community that I experienced, because I long time in not that ecosystem, because I traditionally I'm an innovator, and then like telecom, IT, digital technology innovation, and business strategy, something like that. And because of COVID-19, I think about what will be my future like career, and then I come into like a sustainable ESG by some happen. I have a look at I was very busy to learn at what the traditional ESG sustainability guys are doing. And then I learned a lot of the stuff like what is the ES factors, like what is the sustainability measurement, like accounting, all things that actually the mainstream, the ESG guys are doing. And finally, I have something that in mind is what they are doing. What is purpose of the, for example, there are a lot of the, one of my topic in the previous webinar, the sustainable finance, there are huge amount of the investment fund is put into like some innovation in the sustainability, but their measurement is based on something that, for example, what is the carbon footprint? So how much the carbon generate in the, like, for example, scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, and internally, and then by indirectly, or in the supply chain, and then measure carbon, to provide some method, and then measure how much carbon they generate, and then over the year, how much carbon actually reduce, right? And that's it. And then they make a rating. this company is like a point this, right? And then based on the rating, actually invest a lot of money. But I found that, for example, this is one example that how you can make your rating higher. For example, you have a carbon emitting source, like we mentioned, a lot of the network, supply chain, all of your company system generate the carbon footprint, right? For example, that you have like some company or some factory actually that, or some, for example, it's good example with like manufacturing, like for example, cars, like traditional like gasoline cars, right? And then you got like low point because of the your manufacturing product actually generate a lot of carbon. And what happened? You sell out this company to other company, or you sell out, or for example, you relocate your company in Africa, and then put into like under the different owners, right? In the system wise, still there is a carbon generator, but you got the high rate, right? You got the investment. It's funny, right? That's exactly what I found, right? So
fully agree.
Yeah, so what we need is fundamentally we want to improve the situation, right? Because then maybe I have a tech mind, right? Because we're looking at the what is the reason, what is the problem, and then we try to innovate to find the problem, right? And then try to find out the system wide, right? And I found it's something wrong, right? It's not that's why what happened also situation in climate change risk, right? Because the way actually the individual company doing is not in the system wise. We are the shared world, like a metaverse is a shared world, right? So I think that your effort is really important. And then I tried to communicate, for example, I have a lot of the webinar series for the traditional sustainability. But I know that they are not the technology guys, so they don't care about much about their traditionally CSR or something like. They care about the society, PR or something like that. But at least they need to understand, or in the like company level, like the executive level or the board member level, they oversight the whole company, not just R&D or manufacturing, but also oversight like a traditional sustainability. They should oversight what is really important, right? So that's the one I really tried to communicate with other experts, and they try to make them communicate, right? So that's what I'm doing, but still I'm not influencing much. But that's why I think that your effort is really important. We need to, for example, here is one question about like digital technologies can be like improve the sustainability situation. Also they can be like influence negatively. Yeah, that's true, right? So we call like in the like sustainability community, the professional, this called like a double materiality they call. And then it's just to say it is like all the digital technology can be negatively impact or positively impact, right? It's a metaverse, is same thing, right? They can have to like save energies, they can have to like reduce carbon, reduce like waste, like a dog mentioned about the ES like that. Also, they also itself generate, right, this problem, right? So we need to be like in balancing between two sides, and then we want to be more in the system wise. The positive impact is bigger than negative impact. That's I think that the innovators' role, and then should be communicate with other layers to what is our purpose. We want to like give a positive impact, and then by doing that, actually, we need to innovate from the fundamental level, right? So I thank you for your mentioning. And then I think that we almost a lot of time, but we are going to have some short discussion and Q&A time. So, for example, there is one question I already mentioned about like a positive and negative effect, and then discussion from the point of ES is how can it provide a company product project a sustainable experience? Yeah, that's what I mentioned. That for example, in the metaverse, this is one example that in the metaverse, that for fashion industry, yesterday I did a webinar about the topic was the sustainable product in a circular economy. So how you make, like a dog mentioned about how you make the reduce resource, and then your end product will end the life in like waste, like put in the like the plastic problem, packaging problem, but we can be circular then. And then we can like improve like waste management and also like reduce the energy or something like that. So metaverse, for example, can have them. For example, in the fashion industry, that I mentioned about the metaverse can put in your like a shopping mall, like a shopping shop or some showroom into the metaverse, and then manage the shopping mall. That can be happen like for example, they can reduce waste, or they can, for example, AI can product like a predict what kind of product actually can make, so reduce the resources or something like that. So that's one short one I can give you answer. And then other thing that a lot of people ask about the sharing presentation, because I think that your presentation is really nice. So I think that if you it's totally up to speakers. So if you can share, if you want to share, and then just send me your like a PDF file, and then I will send the PDF in case that you want to share. And then when I send the recording, I will share it. So it totally depends on the speaker. Okay, so for computing, I think the TK is the one actually. The edge computing is related for before they called top for computing and edge computing, but he maybe give more answer about like because he stuck on somewhere. So TK, why don't you talk about relate to like edge computing, security, and for computing?
Can you? I'm not sure I understood the question. Can you repeat that again?
His question is, are we speaking about the fog network? Well, actually, the same thing, right? Because edge network and fog network.
Fog network. Okay, got it. Right? Yep, sure. So, I think, with all due respect, I think our marketeers they are usually very genius. They know how to use the terms properly and to make it exciting for the people. That's how I see the fog. But the fog, basically, if you look at the real world, your fog is beneath your cloud, right? So, but above the ground where the edge is located. So fog is somewhere between your cloud and your edge, if you really want to differentiate between the two. But for this purpose of the discussion, there is no difference. Fog is bringing your computing facilities and the networking facilities closer than your cloud data centers closer to your user, meaning the consumers, where the data is being consumed. So it's a step in the right direction, but if you strictly separate fog from the edge, then it is not there quite yet. The edge is to go quite far deep into the user territory. And within the edge, even there are many layers, as I explained on my previous one of my slides that I was showing, that literally the equipments that users are using, which are called UEs, right? Basically your haptic set, your wonderful game set, your all these things, has these unused GPUs sitting there not being used properly. So they can be properly shared if necessary, if possible, for the loads that are exceeding in the actual edge data center. They can come there. So all your user peripherals could be, this is the other extreme of the fog, basically is going in this direction, that you are taking up those resources and you can utilize them as part of your edge networking. Hopefully I answered that. I don't know if there's anything more on that fog that I need to say.
Yeah, I would just add that, like 10 milliseconds is equal to 100 kilometers away.
Right.
With split rendering capabilities, we really need to design a network.
Exactly.
That's the law of physics. So, the speed of light is, it's 300 kilometers, but with round trip delay and optics, going through fiber optics and so forth, that's the 100 kilometers thing. So anyway, bottom line is, like different companies, like the cellular companies are designing edge networks so that keep the latency down. Like I said, there's the concept of split rendering or distributed processing, which needs to get really low latency. And so different companies, there was a question about who owns the network. And like the cellular operators, the hyperscalers, they're all trying to figure out, how do I optimize the network for the metaverse technology and the standards required. In fact, I think I saw, was it Verizon or someone in 3GPP that was basically saying, when you're doing an application, the applications actually says, hey, this is my ping level. Like I'm working on a medical virtual reality project. What we're finding in the hospitals, we're seeing 250 millisecond ping, right now with Wi-Fi 5 technology. So, you can have a great network and then all of a sudden you put a Wi-Fi 6, access point, and it just makes it horrible. So you have to think, and that's why I really like your slide on looking at the different layers and, how do you look at the infrastructure? Because you could have the best infrastructure possible, but if you have one piece that's a bottleneck,
exactly,
200 millisecond latency, it doesn't matter. You could spend millions of billions of dollars and you still not have a good experience just because of one bottleneck. So you have to get a holistic approach. So
That's very important. That's why actually it's still early, but we need to that's why the system-wise thinking, right? Because we need to think about holistic system. And then looking at what the architecture and then every component we need to think about, right? Because just improving just one network is enough. So I think the metaverse is really is a global effort required, the coalition of all the efforts. Yeah, that's one actually that we can start, right? Because before it just consider about, for instance, 3GPP, for example, a standardization of just one the cellular network is enough. But now we need to think about what the interoperability with others, or how we can actually put into other, for example, in the edge company, not just cellular, we can think about fixed network. So I'm not sure who will be the driver for this standardization of this metaverse infrastructure, but we need to think about it, right? Okay, so our next one will be how many of them have invested personal money into the metaverse? Yeah, actually the metaverse is you can, for example, you can buy the rent in a metaverse, like a decentral rent or something like that, but I didn't, but Loïc, have you done? So you give some answer, right?
Yes, indeed. I've invested notably in Erta. It's a new project, and I have also some sandbox. And we will organize actually the first. And that's the first phase of our product an event in Decentraland. So we are actually renting in Decentraland. So not only buying, renting a land with a building that has been built in Decentraland. And we are now actually looking at having DJs in Decentraland. So it's quite funny to see, and also having some NFT to expose. So it's a real economy that is now built, and it's just like the physical economy in parallel. And so when you organize such an event, it's quite a hassle as well, because you need to orchestrate all the logistic to prepare the building and so on. So yeah, indeed.
I think that that's one, maybe not the main question, maybe the main topic of the today, but I'm just thinking about, for example, the digital asset, right? As a blockchain, or especially the Bitcoin. When to think about what is the value of the, because of blockchain is turned out, the Bitcoin is turned out that they are not like currency, right? Because they can they have some value because the community keep the value. But recently there are a lot of the happen, like for example, Terra Luna is one of the stable coin. I'm not sure you're interested in blockchain, and then the price is drop, and then it is something that still that some of this kind of voucher, like a rent or something in the voucher, like economic system, still this economic system is not stable. So it's not a perfectly functional like a real life economic system. So that's one actually another thing. For example, CD, they provide a report, a very intensive report about how to deal with this kind of money system. But yeah, that's one you can think about. You know, we already did this kind of thing. Oh, Kimberly, you're there. So she was a speaker of the event about the Web3 digital asset, and we talked about this kind of thing before. Kimberly, do you have any comment about that?
I would make one comment while she's maybe coming online. So the wealth of the world right now is $400 trillion. Last year, I think crypto was about $3 trillion worth of value. Unfortunately, right now, crypto's taking a beat. So from an investment point of view, you know, there's going to be winners and losers. The market's going to fluctuate, especially it's going to be more and more volatile. I don't personally own crypto and you know, digital land, but there are going to be winners. There's going to be losers. You know, its timing is everything in most markets. But you know, probably, you know, a balanced portfolio. Because this market will grow, just like the .com. There were people who lost a lot of money in the .com, and then there were people who made a lot of money in the 2010s, the 2000s and 2010s. So I think the net is going to grow. Right now, our world economy is what, about $85 trillion. You know, and that's where you know, my comment about growing the digital economy, because you know, and I think to Locke's point, you know, if all we're doing is growing the economy, but not taking away things that are negative, you know, then we're just going to have more and more CO2 gas emissions. So, you know, that's why my point about, you know, yeah, you know, ICT does generate, I mean, 2 gigatons of CO2 gas emissions, but we save 10 times that if people would travel physically. So it's kind of like a balance, right, of how much do you use the digital world and the virtual world. So anyway, these are things, you know, it's going to be a challenge. But I do think the metaverse on the whole will minimize our carbon footprint if we do this properly.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yes, no, actually, I did a similar topic in webinar before, and then I'm preparing some papers about that. But yeah, definitely, metaverse will be more positive than negative. I think that Lovin, you are the investor, right? Because do you have anything comment about something investing in the metaverse, especially for the like a virtual land or the virtual asset?
It was to me that you had a question.
No, it's not a question, because I noticed some participant actually the space. Okay, so I think that so I would like to mention that my next webinar topic is investing in metaverse innovation, and especially sustainable metaverse innovation. I think that Loïc is you're the one actually the core of that you do is like a sustainable metaverse innovation. So the reason is actually for example, I look at the people I think about what is meant by the metaverse investing. It's like today's like investing into the crypto, right? Because Web3 or the NFT or something like that. But there are a lot of the other opportunity for the improving the situation in like innovation. So that's why my next topic will be. I will invite for to the next webinar. Okay, so maybe the final question. I think that this will be the definitely for Doug. Who will be the MV infrastructure, the MV owners, MNO or the hyperscaler?
Like I said before, I think the hyperscalers are building out the network. They're optimizing it. It'll be interesting to see standards. I do think the cellular operators, have a huge opportunity as well on this build out of this network. But I think follow the standards, and how the standards play out will dictate how who builds the infrastructure of the metaverse. But I think right now, like the cable operators are doing it, the hyperscalers, and then the cellular operators are the traditional ones. I don't know if TK wants to make any other comments.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I actually think that it is going to be by everyone. It's not just 5G people obviously has that very much in their mind, and they are building an infrastructure that connects pretty much every end to the other end. So whether it's a physical or it's virtual, I think that's what it's heading, 5G generation, if you look at the trajectory. But that's in a very low category of the infrastructure. As you build up those layers, you've seen 7 layers, right? So there's plenty of people to participate in building this, the structure here. So it's going to be an interesting situation. I don't think we can leave anybody out. Just like any universe, metaverse is similar. You have so many different players. They have to come in place. But initially, I think your fundamental stuff has to be there, which is why I think I'm a little biased, but I might say the networking principle has to work very well with very tight cybersecurity that people have trust on. Because if you break that cybersecurity thing quite often, or there's significant penalty, then people are going to be backed away from using metaverse, or they're going to be very cautious. So that's a thwarting process, and that's going to cause a serious problem for any growth. So it's very important that those fundamentals are taken care of from the beginning, and it keeps in pace, because it's never static, right? You can never win a war on the cyber war by saying, I have developed the magic potion here that will solve all the type of cybersecurity problem. That doesn't exist. It never happens. Okay, it's a cat and mouse game. So you just have to stay one step ahead of your malicious intent. The same technology that actually thwarts the attack, the same technology can be fostering the attacks. So you can use it both ways, and it's just a game. So the game has to be played, and it'll keep a lot of cybersecurity people employed. Mm-hmm. Good thing is.
Yeah. I think that also because I was thinking of the MNO or something like that, 5G has a different business model for the MNO. So I think that for the metaverse will be the different model. For example, we talk about the metaverse service provider. We already talk about like metaverse as a service. So we may be like this kind of MNO type in the metaverse infrastructure management or something like this. So who knows what will happen in the future. So I think that we almost at time. So thank you for everyone to participate today. And then it's honored to share this kind of great speakers to share their insight and knowledge and experience. So thank you for speakers, and then thank you for everyone to participate. So as I said, that if the speakers allowed it, they will send me their presentation, and I'll share when I share my recording. Okay. Okay. So is there any question, comment? Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.